The situation in Israel and the entire Middle East region seems to be heating up, and it could potentially spin out of control, or it can de-escalate before it even gets there. So this is a channel that I randomly stumbled across, and I wanted to update you guys on some of the stuff that's been going on. Breaking Hamas, Israel, synagogues, IDF strikes. This is TBN Israel. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting stuff. So I wanted to link some of this to you guys because some of you guys aren't keeping up what's going on in the Middle East. And hey, some of these things could de-escalate and everything could be well. That's my heart. I actually want to go back to Israel. I've been to Israel once. I want to go back again. We've been talking about going. A bunch of different folks are reaching out to me, trying to get me to go, trying to get me to take a group there. So this is very interesting stuff if these things settle down, which I hope they will for everyone involved, not just the Israelis, for the folks that are Palestinians, for the folks all over the region. All right, let's check this out.
4 hours have seen dramatic developments in Judea and Samaria, Lebanon, Iran, Gaza, and even in Tel Aviv, where there was an explosion near a synagogue. And the Islamic accepted joint responsibility for this terror attack, which involved an unusually large explosive charge of 8 kilograms. They added in their announcement that they intend to continue sending terrorists to attack Tel Aviv as long as the IDF continues operations against them.
Okay, now something you guys may not know, Tel Aviv is like one of the most metropolitan areas in the world. Tel Aviv is a combination of like Miami Beach and like Los Angeles. Like that's the weather is much similar to Southern California, but it has like a Miami Beach vibe. It's the LGBT capital of the world, which is really interesting because it's just 30 miles away from Jerusalem, which is the most conservative religious city in the world. That's how Israel is. For better or for worse, that's what it is. It's like it's hyper religious, and then it's also hyper liberal, and it's literally like an hour drive because there's a lot of traffic. Them sending people into Tel Aviv to do self-deletion bombs is unprecedented. It's crazy to send people into dense areas like this that are highly populated with people. So this is a big deal.
On that note, there were also developments in the negotiations over a ceasefire in Gaza, while the status of Israel's remaining hostages and the IDF's increasing dominance over Hamas in the Gaza Strip are all weighing on a potential deal. On the northern front, there is growing evidence that the citizens of Lebanon blame Hezbollah for the electricity crisis, but Hezbollah doesn't seem to notice. They're too busy launching dozens of rockets into the Upper Galilee, while the Israeli Air Force is responding vigorously by hitting Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon. Let's dive into the details. I'm Meir Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 317th day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and all its terror proxy groups in Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. We start our report in Tel Aviv, the financial capital of Israel, which is usually far away from the battle. But on Sunday, there was an explosion in Lehi Street near the entrance to a synagogue. The explosion, 50-year-old man, and lightly wounded another man, but it could have been much worse.
Okay, so from my understanding, the only person that was injured in this, and again, like imagine someone going into Times Square, New York. Imagine someone going into Miami Beach. Like imagine someone doing this. This is really intense in terms of what the kind of precedent this is. And as far as we know, the only person that was hurt was the person with the self-deletion harnessed on himself. No one else was hurt, which is in and of itself, you could argue pretty miraculous, or at least miracle adjacent, that no one in such a densely populated area got hurt.
The explosive device was carried to the entrance of the synagogue by the still unidentified 50-year-old man in a backpack. Surveillance cameras recorded him walking along Heitzel Street and carrying the backpack to his intended target. As he walked down Lehi Street, a truck passed by just as the explosive went off, absorbing most of the blast and sparing the synagogue and everyone inside. Police believe that this was a so-called accident that happened sometimes as while not accustomed to handling explosives, set them off prematurely.
Jeez.
Others are saying that the fact that the explosives went off just that moment when a truck was passing by to observe the blast can't be a coincidence. This narrative says that this was a miraculous answer to many prayers that are being sent up by people like you all over the world for the protection of Israel. In any case, the Magen David Adom paramedics arrived on the scene and pronounced the suspected dead on location, while also treating a 33-year-old man who was nearby and received light wounds from the blast. The explosion is being investigated by the police and the Shin Bet, but the fact that the suspect's body was almost completely destroyed in the explosion makes it difficult to identify him, and without that starting point, it's difficult to determine who might have sent him. That leaves investigators to try and find other clues that will allow them to determine if this was an isolated incident or if there is danger of more such attacks in Tel Aviv. The investigation is in its early stages, and at this point, all we know for sure is that a heightened state of vigilance is needed.
So anyway, they're trying to negotiate the hostage release. There's a whole lot going on, and it only seems to getting more intense. Now, I think the issue that people don't understand within Israel is that Israel is not a monolith. Like, you definitely have the far right influence on the current administration, and a lot of the far right in Israel are the folks that are going into the Palestinian neighborhoods with new settlements, the people who don't serve in the military, the people that are causing a lot of the turmoil have a strong influence with the Bibi administration and folks on the far right. But Israel right now is in massive protest, and there's a lot of folks that want to ceasefire and want to see the hostages come home. And so it's a very tumultuous time, and everyone's not like on board with everything that happens there. And I hope and I pray that the situation settles down, because there's innocent people that have been hurt on both sides of this conflict. And it's really sad, man. And it's a bummer. And I think they got to figure it out. Like, they need to clean this up, and they need to move on to try and figuring out how they're going to find resolution here. Because I don't know. I don't know how much longer this is going to be sustainable, if that makes sense. I think it's very difficult to continue down this path and not eventually enter some just uncharted terrain that is going that can be irreversible, if that makes sense. So anyway, those are my thoughts on this. Appreciate everybody being here. Again, if you do not have a trial of our Patreon, you should go sign up for it. If you're really rocking out, you want to get a discount, you can get the discount on the annual. There's a bunch of cool stuff like our new collection, available only on Patreon right now, all of our podcasts, all kinds of cool stuff. So if you guys want to check that out. We see, according to the Bible, that prayer is extremely important in terms of us being transformed from the inside out when we get aligned with God's will. For the Christians watching this channel, I want you guys to implement these spiritual disciplines in your day-to-day life. And the only way I've been able to do this consistently is through writing down my prayers in a prayer journal that does a few things. One, it allows me to reflect and come to God humbly and ask Him to move on my behalf. And two, it allows me to document my prayers, which ultimately help me remember the very things that I was praying for and see the hand of God tangibly in my life when He answers them. So I would urge you, consider writing down your prayers. It could be in a blank notebook. It could even be on your phone. Or you could check out the one I personally designed and used from my own quiet time and spiritual discipline that I think will be a huge blessing. It's the exact structure and system that I've used for years to pray and be more consistent in my spiritual disciplines. You can pick yours up today by clicking the link in the pinned comment below. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.